record the session. My name's Mark Greatrix. I'm the Chief Executive of Bellevue Place Education Trust, the trust that, along with 7 other schools, maintains Whitehall Park School and opened it back in 2014 as a new free school in Islington. And I'm joined today by Laura Gregory, who's the Director of Education for Bellevue Place, who's going to support me in the session in a moment. But we're here to welcome and introduce you to Helen Tyler, who was appointed, I'm delighted to say, appointed as the head teacher for Whitehall Park School from the 1st of September. So welcome, Helen. We're going to give Helen just a brief overview, a second, to give her an opportunity to introduce herself, her background, and then what we are also going to run today is an opportunity to do some question and answer sessions as well. So down at the bottom of your screen, if you can see a Q&A tab, if you can click on there, and while Helen's talking or now or whenever throughout this session, please do type any questions you'd like to ask, and myself and Laura will take it in turns to put these questions to Helen after she's given an overview. As I say, we would have probably liked to have done this in person, to be honest, of course, but this lockdown has put us into challenging times, along with everyone else, and so we're just trying to do this in a different way. But I hope come September, I'm sure we'll be back at an opportunity where we can meet in person and rerun these sessions together as well, which we'd be delighted to do. That's just the format of what we're looking to run today. Of course, we're delighted Helen's joined us. Helen came through a competitive process we were able to run back in April, May, and we're delighted that we were supported by staff, children you were able to meet throughout this process, local advisory board members, and strong parental supporters we've always had at Whitehall Park School, which was fantastic. Although we did do it through on Zoom, Helen, you were able to get to visit the school just before we locked down, didn't you? Which I'm delighted you're able to do, to come and see not only the building we've been in for 3 years now, but also some of the fantastic children arrangements. And it's changed a little bit at the moment. Of course, the staff are doing a phenomenal job, and we thank them a lot for what they're doing in these special times. But hopefully we'll be close back to normal, as we do hope. But what I'd like to do now is just hand over to Helen just to give a bit of an introduction to herself. And as I say, if I can encourage you to click on that Q&A tab and just put some of your questions, we can then hopefully pick up themes or pick up some of the points that you'd like to put to Helen over this next half hour. But Helen, welcome, and love to hear a bit about your background.
Thank you, Mark, and thank you for that introduction. And thank you everybody who's here today joining this webinar, particularly as it's such a beautiful, hot, sunny afternoon. And I'm really sad that I'm not able to meet you in person. I've been hoping to do that in the school hall, a couple of meetings around now, but I'm sure we'll be able to do that in September. Mark asked me to spend 5 or 10 minutes telling you about my background. He has just said 5 minutes, so I'll make it a bit briefer. And why I'm really excited about joining Whitehall Park School. So I've spent almost all of my teaching career in inner city London schools in the London boroughs of Westminster and Camden. And the communities they've served have been very diverse in terms of ethnicity, and also ranging from very low to very high deprivation. I've been a head teacher for 20 years, and I've led both my previous and my current schools from causing concern to outstanding. And St Joseph's is currently good with outstanding features. On 3 occasions, and actually I will say St Joseph's actually is very diverse, but it actually does fall into the 10-20% of highest deprivation, which makes me more proud of the fact on 3 occasions it's been in the top 250 schools nationally for attainment and progress. We've also won the London Pupil Premium Award, and we've been a national runner-up and a national finalist. I've also worked as a school improvement partner, both full-time in Camden, where I work with about 20 schools and with their governing bodies, and also during my current headship in Ealing. During my previous headship, I established a resource base, so including medical and physio rooms, for physically disabled children to be educated mainstream alongside their peers. During this time, I also worked as a DFE primary strategy consultant leader with 4 other primary schools who were in challenging circumstances. So I worked with their leadership teams to help them raise standards in literacy and numeracy. During my headships, I've also worked as a DfE local leader of education. I've spent 13 years as a National College of Teaching and Learning coach for aspiring leaders. And I'm one of 18 national ambassadors for Achievement for All, basically championing high outcomes for all children. In recent years, I've sat on various DfE roundtable discussion groups on assessment and accountability. I've hosted various ministerial and DfE visits, contributed to national policies, including teaching assistant standards, the use of pupil premium, and various publications. St Joseph's has also been a national education advocacy school and an Achievement for All quality lead school for many years, facilitating the sharing of good practice both locally, so across London, and nationally. I've long since been committed to teacher training, so every year we always train teachers, and we're part of the Teaching School Alliance. I'm really passionate about performing and creative arts, and I was on the, a number of you will have heard about ArtsMark, and I was on the advisory committee for the review of ArtsMark. St Joseph's is also one of only 85 schools nationally and 8 in London who have received the Sing Up Platinum Award. I'm passionate about music. So I've been the head teacher at St Joseph's for 13 years, and I'm now looking for my next challenge. It needed to be the right one, absolutely the right school. So I was going to spend some time looking, and I came across the ad for Whitehall Park, and it was the vision, the values and the ethos of the school and of the trust that completely captured my attention. It was everything I was looking for. All about the high expectations for the children, academic, personal, social, the curriculum rooted in a whole school consensus that every child learns, enjoys and succeeds. It was academic rigour, but it was with enriched opportunities and a very personalised approach to learning. I loved the values-based curriculum, becoming an accredited thinking school, philosophy for children, the maths mastery approach, and what came across well with really strong partnerships, particularly with parents. So basically, it had my name on it. So I visited the school and it was everything I was looking for. Mark gave a presentation at the beginning. It basically cemented everything I wanted, and then it was your children and the staff that kind of nailed it basically, and it was the school that I next wanted to lead. So it's a real privilege. I do see my job as a head teacher, I think it's the best job in the world, and it is a privilege, and it's a real privilege to be the next head teacher at Whitehall Park School. And I know you're here because you've signed up to that vision and that ethos, and so have I. I've signed up too. So and I do want to say that I'm very aware of how much good stuff is already going on in the school. So I'm not planning to come in. I'm planning to come in and basically build on all the wonderful achievements. Got wonderful children, really fantastic, committed parents, staff seem amazing, and there's there's excellent provision already. So it's about building on that. I know I said to Mark at the interview that I never underestimate the importance of relationships. Positive, authentic relationships with really honest and strong communication are mission critical. So I see, my first thing, I will be getting to know all of you in the school community, and I'll be doing a lot of looking and learning and listening. So I think Mark's probably going to stop me there. I've got loads more to say about what I believe in and the curriculum, but I don't know if you want me to stop there, Mark, or to carry on.
We've got a couple of questions already, Helen, so actually that would be great because we can feed that into some of the questions people are starting to put through. So if you are able just to put some more specific questions, then we can tailor it to the parents' requests, which will be fantastic. I'm going to kick off, if that's all right, Helen. Not only have you had a nice welcome from some of the staff, by the way, so thank you for that, if you emailed that, and also from the parents. And I'm just going to pair a couple of questions together. when you're coming into the new school, how do you plan, any changes to the teaching method, the culture, the features of the school? And I'll combine that with, of course, where we're trying to go with the school is we're quite clear when we met with you, and so was the chair of the advisory board, who was also on the panel as well, and the other advisory board, that we see the next stage of the school's journey to go through to that outstanding Ofsted achievement that we were so close to 3 years ago. And now we're coming into, what might be an Ofsted year, depending on the COVID situation. How do you see that will work in terms of your impact, and what do you hope to bring, and what would the culture look like in the school that you're looking to lead?
There are a lot of questions in there, Mark, so I'm going to try and unpick some of them. I think some of them are the very first things about September. And one of the first things, we've all been in this coronavirus storm, but we've all been in very different boats weathering it. And so children will be, if they, already have returned to school or be returning to school with many different, they've had different experiences and opportunities during the lockdown. Some children, I know the staff have been amazing. They've welcomed me already. I've been working with them over the last few weeks and continuing to. And I know they've done, as you said, Mark, a phenomenal job in preparing for the children. And what they've said to me, I haven't been in, but they've said the children are so excited to be back. And it doesn't surprise me, because I know the staff really miss them. So I know a lot of them have had a really smooth transition back. For some children, that may be different, and so kind of mental health and well-being, all the PSHE curriculum will be really paramount in September. Also, it's about all the social interactions, WhatsApping your friends isn't, FaceTiming isn't the same, or kind of socially distanced. We can't really socially distance football, but having a socially distanced play in the park isn't the same as being back in school. So I think there needs to be a lot of opportunities for that social interaction with collaborative work, teamwork, lots of sports games. So those are kind of a lot of practical things thinking about coming back. Also, there needs to be, and I've already spoken to the senior leadership team about this, and what will be the year 6 teachers, about we need to do some real rigorous assessment to see where the gaps are in the children's learning. Some children will have done really well, some children may have fallen behind, it's going to be a different experience. So we need to do a gaps analysis, and then that will inform quality first teaching in the classroom. And then, I envisage there'll be quite a lot of interventions going on, booster classes. We'll need to see how we're deploying staff. We've already talked about, certainly with the year 6 children, meeting up with, I've already had conversations with Highgate School. I'm going in with the 2 year 6 teachers towards the end of term. We're going to go in with the gaps analysis. They will support us with students, helping with that. I know there's been an ad go out for a tutor. I've also been looking at additional tuition for those year 6 parents with reading groups and writing. So there's been a lot going on behind the scenes already. I'm not going to come in. I know the outcomes are very high in school, all of the stuff. It's, the quick thinking schools, it's a curriculum based on cognition. It's based on higher order skills, all the things I passionately believe in. There's a lot of good stuff going on. So I need to, as part of with Laura and with you, do that learning review at the beginning of the year, and we can see what's working really well and what we need to plan for the next steps.
Thank you, Helen. I think you kind of started delving into the question that I was going to ask you. So I'm going to ask it to you just in case there's anything else you wanted to add. The parent has obviously said welcome.
Thank you.
Congratulations. But there are children that are going to be taking their 11 plus, as well as selective school exams soon. Do you have any additional plans for prep or to help with these children, especially because they've been disadvantaged by the break of...
Absolutely, yeah. They're going to be, and that is something we've been talking about as the SLT as a priority for them. I really believe that children should go to their school of choice, a secondary school. I don't think that should be limited. I'm very aware that many of the parents may choose selective schools, independent schools, and I do see as part of the vision is for us to help support that and ensure that their children achieve really well at greater depth. And they've also got, I know we do the CAPS test, but it's also to really get to know those schools. Already been talking about which we've got secondary school meetings coming up, I think maybe next week or the week after. So that's with local community schools, but also with some of the independent schools. I know there's a lot of parents out there with a lot of skills, a lot of expertise, who I basically want to grab to help work with me on this. And you know, different schools are right for different children, so it's really important that we get to know those schools and what is going to be right for your child. So yeah, I'm kind of with you.
Right. The next question for you, Helen, is really around the situation we find ourselves in at the moment, where schools are starting to reopen in terms of more children coming back. And obviously we've been given, we've opened on the 1st of June, more children come back on the 22nd, and we're moving towards hopefully the 1st September. What's your kind of thinking? Obviously you're leading a school at the moment, so I know your detailed thinking around this, around how you're going to support families to come back and support children, particularly those that are a little bit more unsure, maybe from vulnerable groups. I know BME families are quite worried about the situation at the moment. What reassurance are you thinking about in terms of September return for all children?
Well, we're already starting that, and as you say, Mark, that's true, and that's true across Camden, that the BAME groups are quite rightly feeling more vulnerable about COVID-19 and more anxious about coming back. I've been, well, as other Camden schools, we've been working with Public Health, Islington and Camden, taking advice from them. We've been having Zoom meetings and calls with parents to try and reassure them and find out what it is that would help them bring their child back in. We've shared the full risk assessments that we've done. So everything's been really open and transparent. And we've been successful in getting some of the families back who weren't happy about it by just doing a phased return. And what we're finding is actually once the children are returning, they're so excited to be back in that actually then their friends want to come in as well. So they're kind of putting some pressure on their parents to come back. Right. I think, you know, I'd be really hoping that we'd have everyone back by September, but you know, we can't let any children fall through the gaps. We've got to make sure we're still providing for those children who may be very vulnerable and can't come back. We need to be making sure that we're doing the best we can, even if it is still kind of remote or virtual learning.
Thank you.
Thank you. Helen, a question for you around this taking you back to your visit at the school and then the work that you've been doing with the SLT. What's most impressed you about Whitehall Park School, and what will you want to retain, and what 2 or 3 things are going to be potentially at the top of your to-do list? But I know the to-do list has already started. So
the to-do list has already started. I think what struck me is all the things that I loved that were written on paper and that Mark talked passionately about, I actually saw in the school. It was all reflected in everything I saw. It was a wonderful, vibrant learning environment. You know, right from the beginning, a very warm welcome. I could see the school values everywhere. I could see the values being acted out through interactions. How I was welcomed. I could see a huge range of learning displayed, really high quality displays around the school, and they reflected high quality learning outcomes and also an enriched curriculum. The children, I was really fortunate to have 2 children show me around with Haley, and they were so enthusiastic. I mean, they were the best ambassadors, you know, for head teacher recruitment. They clearly loved their school, and they really wanted to talk about their learning and all the exciting things they do, about the clubs. So staff were very welcoming. Its behaviour was excellent. It was calm, purposeful learning going on. It was kind of everything I'd kind of read, basically. And one of the things that struck me is that in the paperwork, the application form was, we want children who are interested and interesting. And that's what I found. I found that, you know, they were articulate, they were confident when I spoke to them, and that was the same case when I was interviewed. My interview process, I was so lucky because I started the day with my interview by the children, which couldn't have been a better start. And yeah, so I'm very excited.
Thank you. Next question I've got is great. Is around children. Obviously, we've talked about different groups. One of the groups is parents asking is around actually stretching the more able children, and actually how you've done that, your approach to that. If you can give us an idea of that, and actually how you will support that in the school.
Okay. Well, the first thing is that there should be high expectations of all children. Not just the most, but every single child in the school, there should be the highest expectations, regardless of starting point. So all children should make, you know, the expectation is that they should make good or, you know, outstanding, accelerated progress from wherever they start. That's the first premise. The curriculum, in terms of, we need to make sure that, you know, it can't be sticking plasters and catch up in year 6. It's got to start right from the beginning. I've always had a nursery, so we start it right from 3 years old. But it starts from there, that actually we're getting those children to make that progress there and that additional progress. So year on year, they're making that extra progress through that really, I'd like to go back and talk about the curriculum a bit actually, but through the teaching and learning, through outstanding teaching, through assessment for learning, you know, every single lesson counts, and those lessons have to be engaging for the children. The children have got to be motivated. One of the things I found really important is that not just the year 6 teachers, but all teachers need to know what greater depth learning looks like at the end of year 6. You can't just have a year 6 teacher who knows what we are expecting to have those children, you know, what learning looks like, what those skills are, what the attitudes are, all of those things. It's got to start from the beginning so that everybody is adding value to that and knows where we need to get them. If you want to get a third, 40%, whatever, of your children to greater depth standard, you've got to be building on that each year, not just leaving it to the end. You know, and if we look at reading SATs, which I don't think parents will have done because this is going to be the first year 6, but it's tough, and children have to read a lot in a very, very short space of time, and they have to really organise the thing, and they've got to use an awful lot of skills. And particularly for greater depth. Now, you can't do catch-up. Children have got to be reading really, really high-quality books that are challenging, that are age-appropriate, right the way through. They've got to be reading for pleasure. They've got to be reading for fluency. They've got to be reading for, you know, it's got to be happening the whole way through. They've got to be passionate readers. Otherwise, they're never going to get greater depth standard. So that involves everybody from day one. You know, reading underpins everything. So that's one of the things. Writing, you know, if you are using really high quality books, then you can be planning for very high quality outcomes in writing. In terms of maths, what we want, we want children not just to be doing maths or learning maths by rote. We want children to think mathematically. We want them to look at the world mathematically. We want them to be able to reason, to problem solve, and get excited about maths. You know, and sometimes that can be quite daunting for Year 6 teachers, especially if it's the first time they've taught Year 6. What does that look like? How can we do that? So, you know, there will be CPD needs around that. Also, what I've done at St Joseph's is that we have a lot of partnerships with organisations in the community, and we had some venture capitalists who came in and did a lot of work with maths, problem solving and reasoning with our more able children who'd been targeted for greater depth. So we have, you know, we've had maths mentors. We do lots of exciting things around maths. So we have maths weeks where we might have the giant puzzle company in. We'll be looking at art in maths all over London. So we bring it to life. We make it real. We make it meaningful for the children. We make it fun and exciting, you know, because it is. So you know, we bring people in whose careers need maths, who they can aspire to. They can see how the maths needs to be used, how they needed maths in their careers.
Sorry, before I just hand over to Laura, we're just coming up to 5 o'clock, but I was going to run over with a few more questions because we have quite a number, if that's okay. If parents will indulge us just to carry on for another 5 or so minutes, that would be great. Sorry, Laura.
That's okay. We finished, Helen. Was there anything else you wanted to say on that point?
There's always more, Laura, but I'll stop there.
I'm going to group a couple of questions together that have come through about special educational needs, and I know this has been a point raised by the parents in the parent forums that I've attended this year. Just really, what are your plans to support children with special educational needs in the school?
I think the starting point of it is, and this is part of the vision, it's about every child is unique, every child is different, every child has their preferred learning styles, and every child should have a personalised learning journey through school. So the way I say it, you know one child by the time they leave Year 6 will have had an identical learning journey through the school because it needs to be tailored for them. The first thing is that expectations of children with special educational needs to be as high as every other child in the school, regardless of starting point. So the starting point may be lower, but the rates of progress should be the same. Very high. So we need to have, the high expectations, the ambition and the aspirations for them. Some children may have special educational needs, but they'll be academically very high performing. I also believe that children, as you all know, some children learn at different rates. Sometimes they seem to plateau, other times they seem to just absolutely take off. So children who may have been identified with special needs, maybe in Key Stage 1, won't necessarily, if we put effective interventions in place and we've accelerated progress, they won't necessarily still need to be, they will come off the special educational needs checklist. And I think that's important that there can be movement around that. I think it's also really important that that poor teaching, which I can't think there's any at Whitehall Park, but poor teaching doesn't disguise special educational needs. So, it's identifying that, or English as additional language. So it's very important that we actually say, right, what is it? Is it to do with our teaching? Is it to do with English as a second language issue, or is it a special needs issue that we need to specifically address? So first of all, quality first teaching. Classrooms should be teaching and learning and assessment for learning in the classrooms should benefit all children. So there should be, you know, a whole range of strategies. They should be text writs, there should be working walls, etc., number lines, everything that supports all children will benefit children with SEN. If a child, I'll just say this, we've been fortunate to recruit a very experienced SENCO, really experienced. I'm really excited about working with her, and we're already in discussions. She's also a dyslexia specialist. She's also been on leadership teams. She's very experienced with the code of practice and with coaching, mentoring, training teachers and TAs, working with parents and outside agencies. So, of course, big thing, once any special educational needs have been identified, then it's really, really important that we have really strong communication with you as the parents, the child, the teacher, the SENCO, everyone is involved with that. We have a plan, and that needs to be with the support that needs to put in place, and that needs to be agreed with the child as well. What the child, you know, clear targets for the child, and what the child can do, what parents can do at home, and sometimes, you know, there need to be help with strategies for that. Or, you know, and it might just be pre-learning specific topic words, science words for a topic, and then regular monitoring and review. And that needs to be a dialogue with parents. It should never be done to parents or done to children. It really needs to be, yeah, I feel very strongly about that. We use a structured conversation approach at St Joseph's with parents, where parents input as much as the school, and we really listen to what they've got to say. I've got more, but I've probably talked long enough.
I've got one more question for you, Helen. There's a couple that have been asked about teaching assistants in the school. And I know you've been working with the SLT on the staffing structure for next year. And the recruitment process has taken place for this year, ready for September. The main questions, and it's not necessarily something you'll be able to answer as yet, but it's to ponder to you as a thought. We're hoping from one of the parents that teaching assistants may be reintroduced to all of the classrooms. And another parent has asked, linked to catch up, linked to COVID, that they've seen that change from now having one TA to share between two classes. So what are your thoughts around that and potential plans?
My thoughts are, yeah, I've always valued the work of TAs. You know, I've contributed to teaching assistants, you know, national standards. We've been involved in a big project, a 2-year project on maximising the impact of teaching assistants across the school, and that was very successful, and we've been used as a kind of model school for that. But you know, you have to balance that with the budget. So at this point, I can't say exactly what will happen, but I do hear what parents are saying. In principle, I'm absolutely behind you, but if we haven't got the money, we haven't got the money. But we do, so we need to look very carefully about how we're best going to deploy TAs where there's the most need and they're going to be most effective. And also, we've got a great resource with all of you, the parents. You know, I've worked very closely with parents. We've trained parents up as reading volunteers, all sorts. So I'm kind of, where we might have got gaps, maybe I can come to you to help support some of those gaps.
Thank you very much. As I say, we're just coming towards the end of our time, if that's okay. I've just got one question, which is about the local area, and I don't know, I can't remember you saying in your presentation, so I thought I'd just jump on the point about how much you know of the local area. I think it is only a 4-minute cycle, isn't it, for you from where you are? Or
well, a little bit longer. It would have been
downhill.
4 minutes a few years ago, Mark. But no, I think actually you probably see behind me, I'm local. I've got my Hornsey Road Baths picture up there. And yeah, I'm local, so I can walk. I'm just the other, I'm basically Crouch End.
And so you know the schools in the area. You know that obviously as a new school, we are still making our name in the area. Although the school is going to be full and going a full school from September, we are still obviously establishing ourselves in the area in terms of not only in terms of pupils coming to join us, but of course in terms of where children will be going in terms of their onward destination. And we have got a point which I'll just answer as well of how we asked a question earlier about the 11 plus supportive children are choosing to go down that road, and how as a trust we support for the knowledge of the independent exams or selective entry, and we do use that in terms of the support we give to head teachers quite, and I think we've already been talking to you about that, haven't we, Helen, of how that's going to be looked so parents are supported for next year. So we were looking to develop things before the COVID situation came in, so we hope to be able to do that. And there's one other point around just the guidance of what September will look like. And of course, at the moment, children are in bubbles of 15. We're anticipating the guidance will change for September, so they won't be in bubbles of 15. But until the guidance is produced after the government's announcement on Friday, we're not quite in a position yet to know what September looks like. But delighted, and can't thank Helen enough for the engagement you've had in terms of the school and thinking about what September does look like, because it is sooner than we believe, isn't it? With only 3 or 4 weeks left of the school, with the school term. I just wanted to finish on that point. I don't know if there's anything else you wanted to say, Helen, or get over as you reflect while I ramble away. But
Mark, as you said to me, I talk too much. You did say that when I after the interview, I talk too much. I know I do. I've got loads more I'd love to say about the curriculum, the school values, teaching and learning, about an enriched curriculum, loads more. But I know I'll have those opportunities in September, face to face.
I'm sure I wasn't that harsh. You're passionate about what you do. And we're delighted to welcome you to Whitehall Park School. We'll reflect on some of the questions we haven't been able to answer. So if we couldn't answer all the questions, we had a huge number. But we just wanted to thank parents for joining us on this very hot afternoon. And I hope you have a lovely evening enjoying the sun. And welcome, Helen. Look forward to seeing you in September. Thank you very much for everyone's time.
Thank you.
Bye.
Good.